that is outside. Are there any other items to attach? If there are not, I'm going to accept a motion that the agenda be accepted as presented. It is moved by Councillor Stoyle, seconded by Councillor Tessier, that the agenda as presented be accepted. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? The motion is carried. We'll move now then to the minutes of the meeting of April 5th. The minutes of April 5th, a motion to accept them as presented. Moved by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Are there any errors or omissions? Again, these would be from the minutes of April 5th. Errors or omissions, any? We are going once. Going twice. All right, that's it. The bids are over. We'll call the question. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. Business arising then from the minutes of April 5th. Do we have any business arising from that meeting? Anybody? 243. Councillor Stoyles, 243.
Just wanted to highlight the volunteer of the year, and of course last week was volunteer week, and of course we selected our volunteer of the year, and Andrew Ludwell. There was 5 other candidates nominated, and great thank you to all those who volunteer in our community, and especially a big congratulations to Andrew. And that's it, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. Anybody else with business arising from the meeting of April 5th? Okay, hearing none, back to the agenda. We'll move along. We have one piece of correspondence today, I believe, and that piece of correspondence is from St. Peter's Elementary School, and this is in reference to Multicultural Week at St. Peter's. I don't know if there's anything to add to the teachers, add to the request that has been put in by the teachers.
Just for information,
I think it's basically for information only as an FYI. It's great, though, that they're doing that kind of activity, you know. Okay, we are now up to committee reports, and we're going to start with planning and land use today. So everybody, if you could get prepared for that, and I'm going to call on Deputy Mayor Locke. You're up. Floor is yours.
I'm just getting a background.
Yeah. Whatever's going on with these microphones, they haven't been right for a week or two.
They're a little loud here.
Sounds better.
Better?
All right.
Yeah, we're off. Okay, I'm on. You're only serious. All right. Thank you, Your Worship. The first item here has to do with the proposed Anglican Church development, Anglican Cemetery property on Kenmount Road. The committee was advised that the city had received an application from St. Michael's Anglican Church to amend the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan and Development Regulations to accommodate a new church on the Anglican Cemetery property on Kenmount Road. There's a whole detail there, but essentially the Anglican Cemetery is designated as open space cemetery in the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan, and the open space states that the site is designated shall be preserved strictly for cemetery use. I got my glasses here, Your Worship. I got these new trifocals, and I can't seem to. I got a glare.
Well, you can blow it up. You can blow it up.
I got a glare on the machine here.
You can blow it all up.
All right, let's try it again. Let's try it here now. They were expensive enough, so I'm trying to. No, it's better with it off. There you go. All right. So a place of worship, a church, is not permitted within the open space cemetery designation. So to accommodate a church or a place of worship, a text amendment to the municipal plan would be required. Likewise, to accommodate the church at this location, an amendment to the text of the open space cemetery zone in our development regulations would also be required. The proposed amendment will consist of adding a place of worship to the list of permitted uses. This would also be accompanied with modifications to the development standards to accommodate the church development. It is not unusual to have a place of worship in conjunction with the cemetery use, and the request by the church representatives would be compatible to the existing cemetery use and the future residential use that is planned to abut the cemetery. We did have a look at this, Your Worship, in the Planning and Land Use Development Committee, and the committee at the time had no objections to the church use at this particular location. Then, of course, we met with several representatives, some of whom are in the chamber here this afternoon, regarding the water and sewer servicing of the church development, as the property is not in close proximity to the municipal water and sewer services. The committee was advised that once the amendment process is completed, the representatives wish to proceed with the development of the property using an on-site well and septic tank as an interim measure until such a time that municipal water and sewer services are in close proximity to the site, and the church property can then connect to the services. The committee advised, however, that such an arrangement is contrary to city policy, which requires all new development to be connected to municipal water and sewer services. We then explored the matter further, Your Worship, and the representatives advised that to extend the water and sewer lines to their current location basically would just be cost prohibitive. It would be too expensive to do that, to bring water and sewer to that particular site on Kenmount Road. The committee was advised that the church group had reached an agreement with the adjoining residential subdivision developer, which would allow the church access and a service connection to piped water and sewer services when the developer's residential subdivision development abuts the church property. However, based on the current growth of this residential development, Your Worship, we were looking at a time frame of anywhere from 5 to 10 years before such water and sewer services would abut that particular property. In reviewing this matter, the committee is aware that given the close proximity of pipe water and sewer services to all areas within the city of Mount Pearl, the requirement for new development to connect to water and sewer services has been a long-standing policy of the city. And in fact, as we investigated further, Your Worship, there's been numerous developments that have been turned down on the same grounds. We had several previous development applications that were not permitted to proceed, or they have been delayed by the city, by council, on the basis of a lack of available municipal water and sewer services. Some of these have come forth, 4, 5, 6 years ago. So they're also waiting for the services to come to their area. So it was decided that to change this policy now would be contrary to council's earlier decision with these previous applications, and it would be seen as a precedent for unserviced lot development in other areas of Mount Pearl, where municipal water and sewer services are not available or are not in close proximity to the property. The committee, in consideration of the servicing issue, is not prepared to recommend proceeding with a municipal plan and a development regulation amendment to accommodate a place of worship within the open space cemetery designation and the open space cemetery zone on the grounds that it is premature to amend the plan and zoning for such a use as it cannot be connected to municipal water and sewer services at the time of its development. To proceed with the amendment at this time, without the church being able to connect to water and sewer services at the time of development, will be leaving the impression that council is willing to consider a church development with an interim on-site well and septic tank system at this particular location. And this is not council's position at this time. So as such, Your Worship, the Planning and Land Use Development Committee is recommending that council not support the application by St. Michael's Anglican Church for a municipal plan and development regulation amendment to permit a church use within the cemetery designation, as such an amendment is premature in light of the lack of availability of municipal water and sewer services for the church to connect at the time of its development, and I so move.
It is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke. It is seconded by Councillor Tessier. Question or comment? Anybody? Councillor Aker?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I won't be supporting the motion. I think I have a soft spot. I think I said this in committee. I have a soft spot for churches. They're nonprofit organizations. It's very difficult these days to get a church off the ground. I would support an exception, and I understand there has been this policy has been enforced in the past with another request from church, and I guess as I sit here now, I would even support them as an exception to the policy. And I guess I draw the line around churches, so I just want to say I wasn't going to second the motion, even though I am on the committee, and we did hear from the people, but I don't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, we always respect a person's democratic right to decide however they want to choose, and I think we all have a soft spot for churches. We all belong to churches of various faiths. I think one of the things we have to try to do, though, as members of council, is to be fair and to try to be as consistent as we can possibly be in our decision making. One of the things that prompted me to support the planning committee of council in rejecting this application as it's presently proposed, at least, is exactly that. It's the whole idea of fairness and consistency. And I really respect and would very much welcome the parishioners from St. Michael's. I'd love to see them have a home here in Mount Pearl. And as a matter of fact, when we discussed this very application, Your Worship, in committee, I noted there couldn't be a better fit in terms of the placement of a church next to a cemetery. But we have literally turned down dozens of applications in the city of Mount Pearl, whether it be above the 190 Cantor and some of the highlands, some of the areas around Kenmount Road. In fact, we turned down an application by the Christadelphians for a spot right next door to this, where the tower is, for the very same reason. There was no water and sewer there. We are very much an urban core municipality. We don't want to get into developing properties, certainly not at this late stage in our development, that don't even have basic water and sewer services. And to make an amendment, as you say, Deputy Mayor, to make amendment to accommodate that would be, I think most inappropriate at this particular stage. I know that's really disappointing for the people who've come out and wanted to hear support for this application. But again, I think to be fair to all parties who've applied and who've been turned down in the past on the same basis of the application of our policies, whether it be churches or not, and we have turned down churches in the past, I really don't see this happening, and I think it would be counterproductive. If at some time, if the church could find a time and a place for 4 or 5 years to bridge the gap where they could get some space and continue to worship as a community, that would be fabulous. And maybe at that time, who knows, maybe the timelines for expediting access to water and sewer might happen sooner rather than later. Things could work out. And if that were the case, we'd love to have them. But as it is right now, I support the recommendation of the committee and the view of, I think, the majority of council is that we have to continue to implement our policies fairly, judiciously, and consistently as we've done in the past. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be agreeing with my colleague that I won't be supporting the motion either. I see this one a little bit different, and the reason I see this one a little bit different, I think they're willing to put some things in place that as soon as the water and sewer comes in place up there, they're willing to put the money up and willing to make the commitment to do it then. I think, when I heard about the storage mall across the street, got water and sewer, I really wouldn't have any problem. I know that a number of years ago we have turned down other churches and other businesses, and that, but I certainly think that.
Why would you turn those down, though?
Well, I think now that they're willing to make consensus, and within 5 or 6 years the water and sewer will be there, and if they're willing to put the money and sign the documents that they're going to move forward when the water and sewer comes in to do it, I have no problem with them doing it.
Thank you.
I share everybody's sentiments with wanting to be able to do something like this. But again, in the issue of fairness and consistency and in keeping with our regulations, I think it's very important that we support the motion at this time. But again, very welcoming to have you there when the water and the sewer services are ready and ready to be connected. Would love to have St. Michael's Parish there.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, this decision wasn't, arrived at easily. We spent many moments debating this, discussing this, researching it. And again, to Councillor Stoyles' point, I know the church came forth with suggestions. They were willing to put money on the table and the like. But I think what helped me in my particular decision and the recommendation here was that we've turned down similar proposals in the past, and Councillor Walsh indicated the church proposal that we turned down. They also wanted to delay it and put in an interim well and septic, but Council today turned it down on the same grounds. And I just didn't see it proper or fair that, in our past practice we have turned down, and some of these people have been waiting 4, 5, 6 years because that was the decision of Council to do it. And to Councillor Akers' point, he said he'd be willing now to give approval for this church. Well, they don't need it anymore because the water and sewer is near, the church in the past had applied. The water and sewer is almost there now. So they have waited the 6 or 7 years. So in fairness to the appropriate application and consistent application of our policies, that was the turning point for me. It has nothing to do with the church community. I would love to see the church community here. But the concern for me was, how would the previous people who were turned down feel by that? They were making chalk of one and cheese of the other. And of course, I didn't think that that would be equitable or fair. And also, there may be a precedent for any other lands that are not yet developed, but are maybe developable in the future. If we do it for the church on this interim basis, have we set a precedent that other groups come forth and say, well, you've done it for this particular church, you've set a precedent. So I looked on past precedent. I didn't want to set a new precedent. I looked on the precedent that was set in the past. And again, we applied our policies and our procedures to those groups. We turned them down on that grounds, and they have been waiting time for the water and sewer to come to their particular locations. And I just want to say that's the grounds that I turned it down. It has nothing to do with to slight the church or to disadvantage the church. And to Councillor Walsh's point, if they can find an interim measure over the next 3 to 5 years, I would love to see the church come to the city of Mount Pearl. But that's the reasons for my decision on this, and that's the reason, Your Worship, why I brought this motion forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I realize that effectively you closed debate, but we have a little unique circumstance that has cropped up here. So I am going to take a moment with the leave of council. Sure. We met with the church, and to be perfectly honest, I met with officials from the church, and I was quite satisfied at the end of that meeting that if the one area left in the city that required water and sewer servicing was that area, there was nowhere else. It was just that area that required it. I could see us moving ahead and perhaps letting this precedent stand, because there couldn't be another. So that would be fine. Our problem is that half of Black Marsh Road is in that circumstance. All of the land that goes up to the 190, including the 190 going up Mount Carson, is in that circumstance. All of the land, all the way from Avalon Ford, flowing all the way down to the Anglican Cemetery and past it, is in that circumstance. And we've had application, which I wasn't aware of at the time we met with the church. It's only when you do the research that you find this stuff up. We've had application to develop properties without water and sewer in every single one of those locations.
Commercial and residential.
And they've all been turned down. They've all been turned down as a result of we can't have this water and sewer septic situation go on inside an urban center, particularly one with as small a footprint as this. Now, personally, I'd like to see the church sell the land on Kenmount Road. It's valuable land. And buy something in the city and move in and make it happen. But that's a discussion for another day. To the issue in front of us right now, I have to agree with the motion. I have to support the motion, not because I wouldn't welcome the church, I very much would, and not because they don't fit there, they very much do. But that's the reality. If they came back tomorrow and said, can we build it on Black Marsh Road? We'd have to say no, because we've turned down stuff. Well, can we build it up on the end of the hill next to Masonic Park? We'd have to say no. So because of that, I have no choice, I feel, but to support the recommendation as presented by the Planning Committee. And I apologize, Deputy Mayor, I should have said that before you closed debate, but with the leave of council, I'm going to, on that note, then simply call the question. The recommendation by the Planning and Land Use Development Committee is that council support the application, not support the application by St. Michael's Anglican Church for a municipal plan and development regulation amendment at this time to permit a church use within the cemetery designation until such time as water and sewer services for a church to connect to the city's water and sewer services can happen. That's the motion. It is moved by the Deputy Mayor. It is seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favor of that say aye. Aye. And contrary-minded nay. Nay. The motion succeeds, 4 votes to 2. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item here, Your Worship, deals with the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, the annual conference being held in Vancouver from May 25th to May 27th, 2011. The committee was advised that our director, Mr. Yevchek, Director of Planning and Development, has been approached to participate in the annual meeting, and the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada again. And they're holding a panel and a charrette involving 4 planning directors. So Mr. Yevchek has been selected from 4 across the country, which is a great honor. And they're looking at the sustainable planning and design. The Royal Architectural Institute will pay all transportation and accommodation costs with the exception of the per diem. And this per diem is within the director's professional development budget.
So we got to feed him.
We got to feed them, that's it. So the committee supports the director's request to attend this, and as such, the committee is recommending approval for Mr. Yevchak to attend this particular institute in May 25th to May 27th, with the per diem cost to be covered by the city and all other travel costs to be paid for by the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, and I so move.
It is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment?
It's a great opportunity.
Indeed.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. Deputy Mayor, I'm going to stop you just for a second. Folks, you really don't have to bore yourselves to death here. All right? You feel free to leave whenever you want. But if you're fascinated by this, feel free to stay. We seldom get an audience, so feel free to stay. Move right along, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. The third item, Your Worship, has to do with the 2011 Canadian Institute of Planners Annual Conference. And this is a request for sponsorship. The committee was advised that the Newfoundland branch of the Canadian Institute of Planners is hosting its annual conference here in Newfoundland July 10th to the 13th of this year. And the conference's title is entitled Making It Work, Planning in a Connected World. The branch is anticipating approximately 600 to 750 delegates, including practitioners and local administrators from across the province and indeed from across Canada. So the request is for a silver sponsorship for $2,500. And we also note that the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Yevchak, is the chair of the National Coordinating Committee for this particular conference. The committee is in support of the recommendation of this sponsorship, and as such, we're recommending approval for the City of Mount Pearl to be a silver sponsor with a sponsorship amount of $2,500 for the annual Canadian Institute of Planners Conference, which is being hosted in Newfoundland on July 10th to the 13th, 2011, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
The next item, Your Worship, has to do with a variance request, proposed two-car garage on 33 Sunrise Avenue to increase the accessory building floor space for that particular area. This particular proposal does not meet the current regulations for an accessory building, which is 50 square meters or 7% of the lot coverage. This particular application wishes to increase the area to 53.29 square meters. So they're applying for a variance, requesting a variance for this particular application. The Planning and Development Department has no objection to this variance request to increase it, and the committee is in support of this as well. And as such, we're recommending that the variance request be approved and a development permit be issued, subject to the conditions outlined there, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? I gather the 10% variance, they're taking the full variance?
Yes, they
Right.
do take the full variance, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
all of it. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
And the next item, Your Worship, is very good news. It's the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan Review, City Plan of 2010, and the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010. So you can see we have some lovely maps up here behind me. The new future land use map here, and this one here is the land use zoning map. The committee was advised that the public consultation process for our City Plan 2010, and of course the accompanying regulations concluded. And at that point, at the direction of the Committee of the Whole, several revisions were made to the municipal plan and regulations, and the plan and the regulations were then forwarded to the Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial review and release. The committee was further advised that Municipal Affairs has responded, and they have released the plan and the regulations from the provincial release. Now that the department has reviewed and released this, the following are the next steps in the process. Council must adopt the plan and the regulations. A public hearing date would be set and a commissioner appointed. Then we would have a public hearing. The commissioner's report would be issued and received. Council would then approve the plan and regulations. The approved plan and regulations would be sent to the Minister for registration. And then finally, a notice of the registration would be gazetted and published in the Telegram. The department will follow up with the appointment of a commissioner. Sorry, that's been done. So I'm just moving right now. The committee is recommending that Council adopt the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan Review, the City Plan of 2010, and the Mount Pearl Development Regulations of 2010, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And I'll do this now in relation to that. This was outside the kit here, Your Worship.
Yes?
Pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act of 2000, the committee is recommending that the public hearing date for the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan Review and the accompanying Development Regulations 2010 be scheduled for Wednesday, May the 11th of 2011 at 7 p.m. in the Mount Pearl Council Chambers, and also that Jody Saunders would be appointed as the commissioner for this particular hearing, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
All right, and just let me scroll down here to the
That's all I got.
other 50 or 60 pages. Okay. The next item that I have here, Your Worship, has to do with an order that was issued for 3 Emerald Drive concerning the matter of a site inspection that identified that extermination of rodents was required, and an order has been issued to the property owner on April the 12th by the Office of the Director of Planning and Development.
Right.
This issuance of this order was undertaken in accordance with the delegation of authority as per Section 109 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, and we're recommending confirmation of this issuance of the order, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
Question here, Your Worship?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Tessier.
Was there just the one address that
In the
an
end,
order was
yeah.
issued to? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding, you may confirm that.
Yep, this is the
Yep.
one, is my understanding, yep. There's no others required. All right, and the last item I have here, Your Worship, is the building permit list for April the 2nd to April 15th, 2011. During this time period, residential construction totaled $444,000. Commercial construction during the same time period came in at $1,640,000, bringing the total for this time period to $2,084,000. And I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded?
Thank you, Your
Motion is carried. Okay, we will go back now to the top of our agenda, and we will do Community Services Committee report. Councillor Walsh, if you would.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll just turn on that microphone there. First, could we just begin with the skate park thing, which we had, I think, amended and dropped in the box for community services. This basically concludes a fairly lengthy, level of consultation, design.
I got to stop you. This is not in the Community Services report itself.
It's not. It was added to the Community Services amended agenda, but it's okay. Well, we'll just carry through. It was an engineering, Your Worship.
Okay, that's fine. Carry on then. No, you carry on.
Yeah, basically what we're talking about here are we had 2 bids that complied with our tender call that had closed a number of weeks ago. In fact, it closed on the 26th of March, and we were really eager to try to move this process along. As Council is fully aware, we had actually gone through a fairly lengthy consultation with some of the skate park users, bikers, and the like. And with Canada Ramp Company, we're able to come up with a design that was actually, really put together by the young people themselves for the most part, with some professional advice from Canada Ramp and some other people who work in the field. When the bid closed, we actually had 2 qualified bidders. But prior to actually approving the tender, we had a request from Hardcore Skate Parks to withdraw the bid. And of course, because the bid wasn't already approved, and because they felt they couldn't accommodate the submission, they had asked for withdrawal. And of course, we're happy to be able to, I guess maybe not happy, but we're going to release them from that obligation because we hadn't actually approved the tender. They didn't feel that they could accommodate the bid that they had submitted, and we felt the prudent thing to do was to go with the next bidder, which would be New Line Skate Parks, Inc. Their bid for a cast-in place skate park would be $537,355.10. We're looking forward to getting this done. We've run into a number of different roadblocks, particularly with the site up at the original site at the Glacier Reed Center site. And now it's, of course, going to be moved down at the Team Gouges, which in the end, by the way, might actually be in many ways a better fit. So sometimes things happen for a reason. So we're happy to be able to get this done. And we're hoping, Mr. Chamarne, Mr. Lush, and everybody else, that we can actually get this in on time for this year's season so that the young people will have a place to skate and enjoy their activities and their biking activities as well. So that's the plan, that's the motion, and I ask for the support of council for that, Your Worship.
It is moved by Councillor Walsh. It is seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Questions or comments?
Yes, Your Worship.
Councillor Tessier.
Just want to commend Community Services for being so diligent with this particular proposal, this particular development, because as we all know, I mean, we've all been there, we all attended most of the public sessions as well, and we know that the level of want and need is there in Mount Pearl to have our young people have a facility within our boundaries that they can go to and enjoy. And so again, I just wanted to commend Community Services for all the work that's gone into this particular development. I also look forward to the day when it's opened up, because as the mother of a biker, I just can't wait to get him out of my house. But anyway, well done to Community Services.
I was going to say, this is not finished yet.
No.
Not done, but
at least progress, tremendous progress.
Well,
is being
we're hoping
made.
that within a couple of months this will actually be a reality, because it is a cast-in placement, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get it done for the season. Right? That's the plan.
On that note, we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier, for that. Those comments, I'm sure staff also really appreciate the effort that's gone into that. And of course, all of council, as you say, have been out and supporting the whole concept, the design, and we're looking forward to the completion of it. The next thing, Your Worship, the Sport Alliance, who have been in need of a lot of things lately, are particularly in need of money right now, and so we're asking for support to release the $80,000, which is the portion of funding balance for this year, so they can continue with the program staffing and some of the other requirements that they have there, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
And on the 18th of May, we are looking forward to, in fact, what is a huge extravaganza event focusing on the achievements of our young people and the adults who work with our young people in so many different capacities, whether it be the arts or sport, our school systems. And it's quite a competition, but more than a competition, it's actually an opportunity to highlight some of the achievements of our youth. So this Focus on Youth Awards is taking place on the 18th. It will again, I think this year will be at the Glacier. And we have a meal catered as part of that, and it's, as I say, a pretty all-out spiffy night. We're recommending that Brian's Catering, who were the low bidder, in this particular case, $14.68 for each of the meals, be awarded the tender contract for that, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Just before we make the vote, I'm getting all concerned these days about privacy. We're getting all kinds of, as you know, messages and notifications and things about privacy.
Yep.
And I wonder if an example here in releasing the bids for something like a dinner, are we doing something that involves competition within the marketplace where we are violating some kind of rule? I'm posing it as a question for someone to research, probably through the CAO's office, just to find out. Because I'm not sure if I were the guy who wins the award, that I want my primary competitors to know that the next time they bid, you know what I'm saying? There's privacy issues, and it's cropped up for us, before.
I'd argue the exact opposite, Your Worship.
I guess. I see where you're coming from.
In the name of transparency, I do, because this is a tender process, and I like Councillor Tessier, I thought we always, whether it's for trucks or other equipment, that we actually show all of the costs so that we can't be withholding information from the other bidders. This way, everybody
I guess
knows.
so. I just hearing
I do
all
hear
these
what you're
rules,
saying,
of
but
all these rule changes.
I think
I'm wondering,
in
do
the
they
Public
apply to
Tendering
this kind
Act,
of thing?
Yeah,
Maybe they don't, which is fine.
yeah.
Right?
I would
Okay,
think
but-
this would be the absolute exception, because
Yeah.
in the Public Tendering Act, we are bound by it.
Well, of course,
and
this is not a
we have
public
to-
tender situation, and it's not a public tender requirement.
No, it's not, actually. This is an RFP, I guess, is it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
having said that, I mean, we aren't going to
Yep.
get 3 quotes. Having said
Yep.
that, I just wonder, with all the changes in the ruls,
Another job for the
I
CAO.
heard one in
there
St.
you go.
John's where this happened. Well, you know, there was an issue. But anyway, for now,
Yep.
we'll call the question. All those in favor, and the brand new CAO, shinily minted, there in her chair, will get back to me with some info on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, motion on that is voted on and carried, I'm assuming? Yes. All right, move along. I'm sorry, sir. Gary Head.
Not a problem. Last item for me, Your Worship, is to fulfill our obligations related to the MOU with
Yep.
St. John Ambulance, who provide tremendous service for the city at a number of our different functions, events, sporting, city days, Frosty Festival, different things. We give them, as part of the MOU, $3,000. This covers the period of January 1 to December 31st, 2011. And I'd move the release of those funds now and ask for the support of council, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
That's it for me. Thank you very much. Your
Thank
Worship.
you. We're moving to corporate services. Councillor Lane, of course, continues on his, I would say, well-earned vacation for the moment. We're going to call on Councillor Tessier and Councillor Stoyles as alternate on the committee. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item, we're recommending approval to exempt the 2011 business taxes. I don't think property tax is supposed to be there, so it's business taxes for the two businesses that are listed, which is Co-op Housing and Newfoundland Labrador Employers Council. And of course, this is in accordance with our policy for charitable organizations, and I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
The committee is recommending approval to write off the interest in the amount of $2,000.05, subject to the payment of $23,015, representing principal of $20,975.98, and interest, which is $2,027.02, for the property that is listed, which is 5167 NL Limited. And I so move.
Okay, so we're going to write off $2,000 worth of interest and pick up a payment of $23,015. Seems good to me. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
And of course, we have the invoices for approval there listed 1 through 6, and I move that these be accepted as they are presented as well.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Any questions on invoices listed 1 through 6? Total of $1,409,1938.
Are we done now with the Park Avenue upgrading?
Park Avenue upgrading completed.
Doesn't it need
Mr.
one
Lush?
more layer?
It's all done.
Woohoo!
It's all done. The people suffered long and hard, but they got a
Boy,
great,
did
I'll tell you
they
what,
ever.
they got a great street, and this summer they're going to appreciate it.
Well, it's a funny thing because I remember at the time, I mean, it took so long, and we kept saying that they were going to have the prettiest street in Mount Pearl when it was done, and I got to tell you, it really is a beautiful street to drive
Got to
down
get some
now.
lines down there now,
It's
and we're
gorgeous. So well
good. Call the
done.
question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. And is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you for that. We are going to go to engineering services. Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. One item, Cardinal Properties Limited is requesting a release of their security for Pearlview Phase 3 in the amount of $65,000. The engineering staff have determined that all the streets and sidewalks are in the standard, they're fully completed, there's no outstanding deficiencies, and there's a conveyance already been prepared to transfer the title for the streets and the sidewalks over to the City of Mount Pearl. My motion is to approval be granted for release of a certificate of total performance to Cardinal Properties for Phase 3 of Pearlview, which is Court Real Place. And the second part of the motion is security in the amount of $65,000 be released to Cardinal Properties for this for Court Real Place, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. All those question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion's carried.
And that's it, Your Worship. Thank
And
you.
that concludes that. We are up to new business. Last time I started on my left. This time I'll start on my right, and I'll go the other way, in to out. Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a couple of things. First, I wanted to wish David Martin all the best. He's moving from our branch here in Mount Pearl. He replaced Neil Eady a number of years ago.
The branch of Bank of Nova Scotia.
Bank of Nova Scotia, and he's moving on downtown. So I just wanted to wish him well, and I know most of us who've dealt with Neil, and especially here through the city.
Oh, by the way, just to say, I met the new manager today at the Bank of Nova Scotia, a gentleman by the name of Gary Neal, and seems like a pretty dynamic fellow, lives up on Westminster, good Mount Pearler,
That's right.
and he's going to be moving in there. Of course, Darren has been promoted to, I don't know, something with commercial banking now, so he'll continue to partner with us. But yeah, the new manager is excited about the new position, and that's great.
The other thing, Your Worship, I wanted to mention that Household Movers and Shippers, a Mount Pearl company, won a national award at a conference in Las Vegas. Two of their employees at Household Movers, Mary Pickett and Arlene Greenslade, were the top sales representatives for within the division in Canada, and I'd like for you to send them a letter. Household Movers certainly have been around a long time
Here, here.
in Mount Pearl. They've certainly supported our Chamber of Commerce as a major sponsor over the years, and it's nice to see them win this prestigious award. And like I said,
We will certainly, if you get the information to Ms. Lewis, we would be honored to do that.
I certainly will. And I wanted to mention to your worship for you to send a sympathy letter or note to Mr. Walsh. Mr. Walsh's mum passed away, Frances Pat Walsh. Pat is the chair and was is a great volunteer at Emily House and within our community. And I wanted to mention that.
Yep.
Also, your worship, back a few weeks ago when we had a major storm, the last major storm we had, there was supposed to be an Avalon regional meeting take place, and it got cancelled.
Yep.
And it was going to take place in Caravalia. The meeting has now been rescheduled, and it's going to take place on Friday, May 13th and 14th, and it's going to be in Heart's Content. The Caravalia location was booked up and we couldn't get it, but we felt it was important to do it in the region because a lot of these small communities don't get out to the municipal symposium and to the convention because a lot of small towns can't afford it. So we want to, if they can't come to us, we want to bring M&L to them. So it's going to be a 2 evenings of activities and information on municipal government, and certainly wanted to let our council be aware of that as well. And tomorrow night at the Northeast Avalon Joint Council is taking place in Holyrood, and they're having a tribute to Mr. Lewis tomorrow night. So in case anybody, Mr. Lewis, of course, finished with us yesterday and certainly played a big role in the whole region when it comes to municipal government. He certainly helped out a lot of small communities in the region. They wanted to have a special tribute to him tomorrow night, so if anybody would like to be around for that, it's at the Town Hall in Holyrood at 7:30. I certainly am going to be there as in my role as M&L, and I know Councillor Lane would normally be there as the Mount Pearl rep, but of course he's on vacation, so he won't be able to be there.
So you're going to be there?
So I'm planning on being there, so I just wanted to mention if anybody else wanted to come along and be there for that tribute, even if they couldn't make it to the meeting at 7:30. I guess it'd be around 9 o'clock when they'll be having the tribute, so it'd be nice to have some people from Mount Pearl there as well. And he certainly has played a big role on the Avalon, especially helping out with municipal issues and writing letters and doing all kinds of things for municipalities. And I know, CBS and Paradise and Torbay and the larger towns certainly appreciate all he has done for them.
Our problem is going to be that tomorrow night we have the Focus on Youth Awards.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm hoping that's going to be taped so I can see it after. I think they usually tape. I know they taped one last Tuesday. They did tape
Brian, do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure?
You're not aware of it being taped?
That was taped so that they could show it to
Okay.
other people who are
The participant was going on vacation.
Yes, I knew that because I was hoping it would be
Right,
because
okay.
I have to be out there tomorrow night. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Your Worship, I was at the Seniors Independence last week, and they had volunteer appreciation, and they highlighted a number of volunteers within their group, and I just wanted to say hats off, especially to all the volunteers, but especially the seniors. After you've gone through all the different groups and everything with your children and different organizations, to be still volunteering when you become a senior is tremendous, and I want to say thank you, especially to the seniors.
Here, here. Thank you for that. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the first one that I had to mention is done, but just a reminder again that tomorrow at 7:30, I think it is, 7:30 to speak off for the Focus on Youth, and that's taking place here in the chambers. I would love to have an audience. Obviously, the parents will be there, but it's always nice if we can get a good representation of council. Sometimes it's not possible to get everybody, but many people do make an effort to get out, and perhaps some may be able to get up to the Northeast Avalon Joint Council, I think, in Holyrood afterwards. I also just wanted to highlight again and pass on my own personal congratulations to all the nominees for the Citizen of the Year. We did change the format this year. I think it worked out well. I think particularly as part of Volunteer Week, and especially to honor the nominees who, all of them, every single one of them, and I know it's a little bit cliche to say it, but it's also true. You know, like any one of those people that night could have easily been a deserving winner of the Citizen of the Year. So I think the real honor is in the nomination. Somebody is selected, obviously, and we had an incredibly good winner this year in Andrew Ledwell, but the truth is Andrew would be the first to admit that any one of the nominees with him would be a deserving winner. But I think it was a nice night. I want to go on record as saying that I really like it as part of the kickoff of the Volunteer Week. I know that some are advocating to get it back into the Frosty Festival, which is not such a bad thing, but I really think that this is the most appropriate place for it. It just seems to be a great way to acknowledge our tremendous community volunteer and the spirit of volunteerism in the community, and then to highlight all of those nominees with the crowning of an individual winner for Citizen of the Year, and I think it's the appropriate time and place to do it. Other than that, Your Worship, just a couple of things. This time of the year, from the end of March throughout April and maybe perhaps even into May, we get more than just a couple of complaints about rodents. We've had them in the last few weeks. They're not unusual. They're everywhere where there's bog and wooded areas and all that sort of thing. But our major focus is to try to keep them away from the neighborhood areas. And most times when they're in neighborhood areas, they're there because there's an attraction, there's a food supply. And just mentioning that, I think we can do a lot of things to eliminate that food supply. The first is related to garbage, whether people put their garbage out or store it outside or put it out the night before, which is not the proper thing to do anyway. That is a major attraction. Bird feeders can be a major attraction during the winter months. It's a great thing to do, obviously, but people should be aware that unless you clean up, and it's almost impossible in the wintertime
you could be bringing some unfriendly visitors.
You could be bringing some unwelcome visitors, for sure. The third thing, and I think that's also very important, and I know most people are great pet owners, but during the winter months, again, when you get falls of snow and fresh snow on top of snow, sometimes you get a little bit of mess in the back garden that you either don't get to clean up or because weather comes on and you didn't get it cleaned up before a fall of snow. In the spring, the layers of all that sort of unfolds, and that's a major attraction to rodents as well. But sometimes it can be a combination of a number of other things or all three of those. But it really is important that if you have a pet, that you
clean up after.
Clean the garden every single day during the winter months. Is even more important than the other times of the year because you will get a fresh fall of snow and the stuff will be covered, and it really does create a nuisance and a problem. The other thing I wanted to mention is kind of related to that. In May month, I think, Mr. Tremarny, we have our spring makeover, a Mount Pearl makeover. Mm-hmm. It's always a huge event where we get people out to clean up the neighborhood areas. But I'm simply advocating today that don't wait till then. That's a big event where we sort of market it and advertise it, and we get the support of some of the corporate sponsors. But get out around your own property and some of the open spaces that abut your property or trailways. Try to do your part with some friends and family, neighbors. Clean up. It does. This time of the year, it does uncover quite a mess, and I think anything we can do to sort of mitigate that would be probably an action well taken and well appreciated as well.
I had just by way to add on to that, I had this morning on my show a Mount Pearl lady called to voice some pretty serious complaint over the condition once again around Dominion stores, that area, with all the flyers, and after the winter. The pile-up is more than you would see in the run of a summer, and it is pretty ugly, pretty messy. Wondering what the city was going to do about that, and is there not something we can do about it permanently? I question that as well, and we have talked about it at length here. I can't help but think that somehow we have to be able to make the businesses in that area responsible for that cleanup if they can't avoid the mess in the first place. Most of it are flyers in carts and things of that. That's the bulk of the problem. Mm-hmm. And if we could get these stores to contain that problem, I think we'd solve a bulk of the issue. And I just wonder if Public Works couldn't take this matter back once again, and let's do a review on what we've done up to now, because I know we've had a lot of communication with the owners over there, right?
Yeah.
And maybe do something else. Councillor Tesser, you want to add to this?
I mean, I've said it before. I've said it several times before. I'm not sure why we don't just, I don't know, we can't force the stores, I guess. But at point of sale, I mean, when there's something going on, they promote sales, like within the store, or would you like to purchase a balloon for this, nonprofit, which is all great. I'm not sure why at the point of sale they can't say, can I take your flyers? And have a recycling container right there. I don't understand why. I just don't think that. I think it might be a habit that might be a little bit difficult at the beginning to get into.
Well,
but I've seen it done in other places. I've seen it done on the mainland, and I don't understand why it would be that difficult to say, can I take your flyers?
One of the issues for us has to be if they could contain it on their own property.
Well, that's what it wouldn't
Right?
even leave the store then.
It would still be ugly, but it would be theirs, and we could say clean it up. But our problem is it's not contained on their own property, right?
I think
Councillor Walsh?
Mr. Lush must be shaking his head because that's what he was proposing. He actually proposed that we would build, a wire fencing on the property that would contain it there, and we didn't support that recommendation.
But we shouldn't build it. Can't we order that they build it?
We could order that they build it, or we could build it if we were real serious about containing it. But the problem is, I think containing it is only part of the solution. I like Councillor Tessier's recommendation. I've also seen it in other places, in other jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
But that area around Dominion, but Sobeys is not a whole lot better in terms of the
No,
altitude.
I don't think we should pick on Dominion.
No, but I'm just saying in terms
It's everywhere.
In terms of the altitude, just the areas where these supermarkets are located, and the amount of wind, and they're like wind tunnels. It just seems more visible because the property is so immediately adjacent to a 4-lane highway, whereas you don't quite frankly see quite as much up around Sobeys. And I don't think the difference is that the flyers are not in the carts. But I wanted to acknowledge the fact that Mr. Lush did propose what he considered a solution to at least limit it to the property. For me, that's not the solution entirely. The solution is ensuring that this garbage is not flying around anywhere. And if we could eliminate it or help eliminate it, that would be a better course of action. But it really is unsightly. It is a mess. And I know that staff have proposed some solutions other than trying to deal with the...
because right now, we're going to have to go up there and clean that up, or have we already gone up? Mr. Lush, we have...
We've gone up there for 3 days with the med vac all on Old Placentia Road. We've only got 2 weeks left.
Yeah, on Old Placentia Road,
From Sobeys, A&W, right up to...
right up to Dominion. I saw them today. They were right on the corner of Ruth Avenue there with the vac and doing all of that kind
They're
of work.
even out on the highway.
And cleaning it up. It's just that I understand this particular citizen's frustration with it, and saying, God, it's bad enough it's on their property, but now it's my fence, right? That's the problem they're having, right? It's my fence. But I like your ideas, but I don't know. We need to review what we've done and determine a course of action. And as Councillor Walsh says, maybe we need to get serious about it.
Oh, I think we do, and I think that maybe we should issue a challenge to the businesses that have flyer distribution within their stores. Issue a challenge that no flyer goes through the door. No flyer goes through the door unless it's contained. Like, issue that challenge to them.
Of course, we also have, it's not just flyers, right? We also have the reality of the plastic bags as well. But it's a little bit of everything, right?
No doubt.
All right, anyway, I thank you for that, guys. I just wanted to bring it back to Public Works for another quick review. Councillor Walsh, that was it for you?
Thank you.
Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for the information of council and also an invitation, the Anglican parish of the Good Shepherd last week received a grant under the Provincial Homelessness Fund. Minister King was in to the parish, into the church, and it's for $33,450. And what it's designed to do is upgrade their kitchen. They're going to expand their kitchen. They have a community
It's all
lunch
part
there
of the
every
Labyrinth
Wednesday.
program, isn't it?
Related to that, yes. And so we went to the opening, and they started off last year with about a dozen people showing up lunchtime. And the lunches are all free. They're over 100 now. It's growing so much they're going to expand the kitchen, and this money is going to be used for it. So Archdeacon Peddle also extended an invitation to staff and council. Come on by any Wednesday at 12 o'clock. This is the Church of the Good Shepherd over on
And
Richard
have lunch.
Nolan. and have lunch. Now, lunch is free, but really there is no such thing as a free lunch, because if you can make a little donation, they'll take that money and put it towards the food, but they'll also take it and put it towards those people who can't afford their lunch, right?
So
it's the
one
community
Wednesday we
helping
gotta
the
go have
community.
lunch.
So maybe
That'll be
next
fun.
Wednesday you could join me and we'll go out for lunch at the
Sure.
noon.
That'd be great. Councillor
right.
Stoyles.
I was going to say, I was there last Wednesday.
You've
actually,
already
and
had
that's
lunch.
Still, I've been there a number of times, actually, and it's just around the corner for me, and a lot of my neighbours go there.
Ever looking
on a-
for the vote.
on a
Ever
reg-
looking
on
for
a
the vote,
regular
that woman.
basis, and
Councillor
they-
Stoyles, what
they-
is the
they-
recommended
they do-
donation?
They do a pancake thing. Most people throw in $10 or $15.
Good
so-
stuff,
$10
fantastic.
or $15.
I mean,
Couldn't
it's-
go
it's-
for 5 or 10.
It's a lovely lunch, no, 10 or 15 or $20.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
yeah, I'm sure, Your Worship, you could
$20 now.
certainly throw in $20.
Up we go. That is for you, Councillor Aker. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Number of items here. Just, to the flyer issue and the resident that called you on the radio. A student in class today came in. They were out for a walk as a part of their healthy living program on our parkways. And she was very disturbed in my class afterwards at the amount of dog droppings
Yeah.
on our walkways.
Yeah,
And she
it's
said,
terrible.
it is absolutely disgusting.
Well, nobody cleans up.
Because nobody cleans up after. And to Councillor Tessier's point about convincing the stores, I think it's a bigger issue. If I leave Dominion with a flyer, or Sobeys or Canadian Tire with a flyer in my cart, I've got to take some ownership for that as well. It's got to go beyond the businesses, but too many people don't. And again, I know I've raised this before because, it frustrates me to no end. I was out for a walk the weekend around our pathways, and I was down along Municipal Avenue, down along the T Railway, and at one location, someone had come down, evidently with either a pickup truck or wheelbarrows, and all broken up concrete, again, just dumped on the side of the road. And there's this mentality that they can't hold it in their own garden, so they throw it out in the commons area, in the greens. And I think it's a bigger issue, bigger societal issue, where people have no respect for the general property. They don't see the city as their city. They see the city as something that someone else takes care of. But they got to realize this is all of our city, and we all got to take a part to protect it and maintain it. Be it the dog droppings that I've witnessed on the sidewalk on Ruth Avenue, a main thoroughfare where hundreds of people walk. How a pet owner could leave the droppings there is beyond me. And why people still continue to dump old concrete, old car parts in our pathways along Municipal Avenue, it's beyond me. And my students said, well, sir, what can we do? These people need to be fined, and they need to have stiff fines. This is coming from the kids now that are 16, 17 years old. They said if people are deliberately breaking the rules, and they know, they're adults, they know they're breaking the rules, we should hit them with a stiff fine. Now that's coming from the young people, which I found encouraging, that they're finding it disgusting that older folks are not taking the time to, to look after our city. And that's it. I mean, everyone has got to take the part again. So
You already do, though, I think, in fairness. It's just
I totally agree, Councillor Walsh. I totally agree. But it's the delinquent that always stands out. But I mean,
Well,
it's
I
just,
don't know. I got to be honest with you. I hear you, Councillor Walsh, and you too, Deputy Mayor. I got to be honest. I don't believe the majority of pet owners in this city pick up after their dogs. I really don't. I'm sorry.
well, we don't have any data to support that. So
We don't. I mean, all
we
you
could
gotta
debate
do
it.
is
We could debate it all day, and no one
Go walk
really
that.
knows.
Go walk that trail. Go
I
go
do
off.
it.
Go off Missioner and walk that trail.
I do it, and I bike ride it, and
I don't care how many. I'm telling you, 99 dogs out of 100 are leaving behind what they're leaving
Well,
behind.
I don't know.
Well, because you can't really walk it. You kind of got to dance through it. You got to dodge it.
So
Anyway.
and the reason I brought it up is because I know we talked about an education program for recycling. Well, maybe as a part of this campaign, we also got to drive home the message to our residents that this is our city. It's their city. And we all got to take a part to make it as clean and beautiful as possible.
Well, a cleanup campaign of that type might be a good thing for us to do.
But again, we
You
got
make a
to
good point.
keep drilling that message home until they get it. Until they get it. So I just wanted to
Good point.
bring that up again because it frustrates me to no end because I do use our trailways quite extensively, and it's disturbing to see that people feel they have the right to mess it up, and I just find it extremely frustrating. Just another couple of items that residents have asked me about. One has to do with, it happens every year, the snow damage along lawns and stuff like this, from our, taking care of the snow in the streets and that. And someone asked, the expense to repair the lawns, and I know we do it every year. Is there another approach we could have whereby we put markers up? I don't know. I said I would raise it and see if there's a more cost-effective way
We actually do put markers
to
in.
manage the damage. But it's pretty still extensive damage out there in some locations. And again, in the heights of a snowstorm, I don't blame the operators. They're trying to, and they do a great job getting the snow off the streets and the sidewalks. But I don't know if, and I'm just throwing it out because a resident asked this, is there a better way to do it instead of having to go year in, year out of replacing sods and curbs and stuff like that? So I figured I would bring it
Pass
up,
it
and
to
maybe
Mr.
we can go
Lush.
to Infrastructure and Public Works, the committee, or maybe Mr. Lush could have a comment now.
I can comment on it. They do put out markers, and we do track where the problem areas are. And we do, this year, the flyers, for instance, they have laser-guided wing blades. So new technologies do help, but it's not easy when you go into a cul-de-sac. Right. You don't know where the curb is, because we get the argument the other way. You left 2 feet of extra snow for me to shovel. So we do try to improve upon it, but it is difficult, and some new technologies do help, but it'll always remain. But
Right.
we always do try to improve it.
Okay.
We always end up doing a lot of lawns though every summer. There's
Right.
no doubt about that.
And
But
their question
what do
was-
you do? You have
yeah.
to do it.
Oh, we do it, and I said that, we repair it, but their question was, is there another approach that we could take where we wouldn't have to do as much repair? But at least now I can, at least respond in that we are, assessing the problem areas and stuff like that. The other thing, just some congratulations here. Some of our local young people. First of all, the Mount Pearl Senior High boys ball hockey team won the 4A provincial out in Stephenville, I think, last week. So maybe we can send a letter of congratulations there. And also one of our students, Sean Leonard, won the provincial speak-off. And he's going, I think, to Ottawa to represent the province. Now, he's a French immersion student, and I didn't hear the speech yet. I'm hoping he's going to give it in English. But apparently his topic, he basically chastises his fellow youth, and that they're a bunch of wimps, basically. And that's the whole spirit of it. He's a fantastic speaker. So again, if we could send off a letter of congratulations.
If you can get us
to him.
the
Sure.
actual information.
Yep, I will indeed.
For Mona, we'll gladly
I
do
will.
that.
Yes, no problem. And the last thing I want to do is welcome Miss Peach. I think this is your first official meeting as CAO. So welcome aboard, and I know you're going to do a fantastic job. And that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tessier.
It's too late to turn back now, isn't it? Yeah. I guess while we're on the topic of spring cleanup and all of that fun stuff, I'm noticing still that there are a lot of people that are putting out their garbage and not covering it. And it has to be covered now. It's needed to be covered since April 1st. I know in my neighborhood today there's lots of bags with tags on it. So, and we're indicative of, I'm willing to bet most neighborhoods in Mount Pearl, you have to cover your garbage. The snow is gone for all intents and purposes. I mean, it's done, thank God. So I think that it's really important that everybody recognize and remember that in order to keep our city as clean as possible, we have to be responsible with our
Doesn't a
garbage.
bag with a tag, as it were, become a mess in the afternoon?
It didn't today. I was keeping a close eye.
I mean, the challenge here, and I've had somebody, and I've sent it off, I think, to Public Works, to the issue is, if you're going to go along and you're going to tag the bag and leave it, somebody has left their house at 7:30 in the morning, and they're not going to get back till 5 o'clock, and you just leave the bag, by 2 o'clock, chances are very good that if there's any real, garbage in there, now you've got a mess created on the street. Wouldn't we be better off, is the challenge, to have issued the warning, the sticker, if you will, in a mailbox on a door and take the bag,
I believe that's
rather
been done.
than leave the mess?
That's been done in the
That's
past.
what was the challenge, right?
No, today, Your Worship, we tried that approach. So we recorded the names, and we'll send out notices, but there's just so many that it's another job.
I'm
Just so
surprised
many,
because
it's
I would have
another
thought by now, but we're into the 19th of the month, and we're still getting a lot of people not covering
300
it.
today out of 2,500, so that's over 10%. So you give out 300 notices, you know how long that would take. So
Well, I think what we got to start doing is giving the tickets. I think we can fairly start saying that if we have not covering your garbage is a ticketable offense. So are we not in a position of where we've given them the warning after April 1st, that now we can just walk up, take their garbage, obviously, take the picture, we got to have that, take their garbage and say, hey, you got a $45 ticket because you didn't cover your garbage. You've known now this is week number 3 for everybody,
Yes, that's right.
right? I hate to say it, but we got to start getting tough.
But
I think
Your
so.
Worship, I think we got a problem too besides that, because I know last week specifically in my neighborhood, I went out and drove around just about the whole neighborhood, and there was about 5 that I can know for sure, 4 or 5 that had a little cover over their garbage. It wasn't big enough to cover one bag of garbage.
It didn't qualify as being covered.
And they had 5 bags out. They had this little, what you would call it, whatever,
Yeah.
over one bag of garbage. The other ones were tore up, so they qualified because the garbage technically. Well, I'm telling you, they didn't get no ticket. They didn't get money left there. They had the little knit or whatever it was on one
And
bag.
it was inadequate.
And certainly, the garbage was still opened, and I think we need to do.
Well, we got to get tough.
Not only we got to get tough, though. And I mean, I think education is the thing. There should be a certain knit size for every bag. You should have to cover every single bag of garbage. I mean, the way some people. I mean, 99% of the people do a good job and buy the big knits and cover their garbage, or
Only 90%.
well, he said 90%, but I'm saying most people, once they start and they realize that it's happening, because maybe we haven't, and I said it last public meeting, maybe we're not doing enough education to let the public know that it's back on again. Because last month when we started this...
No, I refuse to believe that at this point.
I don't think so.
Not on the 19th of April. I won't
No.
accept that they don't know.
And we
I will accept that they don't care,
No.
but I won't accept that they don't know.
No, it's just really important that people recognize that it is that time of year again. You must cover your garbage in order to make our spring cleanup as painless as possible. But it's you just
We got these
do it.
wonderful
That's it.
municipal enforcement officers running around in fancy-looking police cars, and they all got ticket books. I think we should let people know we're going to start using them.
It is back on our agenda.
Good, good.
To take a more aggressive approach.
Good.
So just,
I won't disagree with the argument, though, that Councillor Stoyles presents, and you do as well, I think. We do need more education on everything from picking up after the pets to getting the city clean. But we're also going to have to start getting enforcement-wise. Anyway,
all right,
Sorry.
and the last item, Your Worship.
Taking your time.
On April 16th, the Newfoundland and Labrador Arts and Letters Awards were handed out.
yep.
These awards recognize talented and well-known artists. There was 800 entries this year.
Wow.
In the awards, and 2 Mount Pearl residents won awards.
You two got to stop.
Yeah. Thank you. Please.
She's looking at you.
It's a pet peeve of mine. I have no problem admitting it. Erin Connolly won Junior Visual Arts for her photography with Wolf at the Door. And the Senior Dramatic Script winner was Justin Sims for his work.
I know him.
You do. For his work with the Deep Cuts. Anyway, these are very prestigious awards, and I think that it's important that we as a city recognize and give credit where credit is due. So if we could acknowledge Aaron and Justin in some way, I think that it would be important that we do.
We will do that. One of them has already gotten a hug, but it wasn't Aaron.
Yeah, but we need a little more. We need a little more formal approach from
We'll
council.
do that, and I certainly know Erin Connolly is Paul's daughter, Durham's granddaughter.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly get a letter, a note of congratulations off.
Yeah, I mean, of 800 entries, I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
spectacular.
it's really pretty good.
Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
that's
Thank
it.
you. That it? That's it. Everybody, I think that's everything for the meeting today. We stand adjourned.